Aitsquel, Antha Smallthan, Slumslumlets, Mustimo. We are doing some work on this system here, the Koksilah Statlo, the Koksilah River, and the Watershed. Halalt is doing work on the Chemainus River.
It's time to start doing it instead of duplication and sitting in separate silos to achieve the same goal. It's a good start.
There's a lot to do. You know, we are supporting each other by sharing of resources, sharing of time, and being able to get the work done a bit more efficiently than it would be if just the one system was being worked on. There's a lot of great resources in this watershed that we want to sustain and keep. The primary one that got us all here is salmon. We do have a number of species in this system. You know, we don't know the full status, but we know they need to be built up. And there's a number of cultural reasons our members come into this area. You know, a number of our ceremonies that we do, and we can't do them without certain things, and this is where they are. They're by the water, they're in these large trees, they're in certain trees. So we need to keep those, and we need to keep them healthy.
Salmon are a good measure of a watershed health. Healthy runs existed, and we're in this watershed from time immemorial. And now we have seen some drastic changes in salmon abundance. So we're trying to understand what's changed, what's made that difference. And part of that is to understand that historic relationship that existed and has always existed between First Nations and salmon.
When we talk to the local First Nations and hear stories of how the river used to be, stories of people diving off of bridges that now have 3 feet of water underneath them. We hear stories of weirs up and down the river where they once caught fish. But yet when we walk the watersheds and we map them and we look at the character of the width and the depth and how all of these habitats are functioning, what we're not seeing is where those weirs may have been and where those pools may have been. And by understanding what those indigenous flows were, we can also understand now what the flows need to be.
We don't have a lot of baseline information, both from a scientific or from a traditional knowledge perspective. And if we're talking about addressing some complex issues in the watershed, we need that baseline information. We need to understand what are the stressors now, what's changing things, what's impacting what, how are the salmon at their different life stages being impacted by low water, by these very low waters in the summer. Increasingly more frequent because of climate change.
Fish need pools, riffles, and glides. So a pool is kind of a deep section of the river where you would swim. And a riffle is an area where you see water that's oxygenating and feeding the river. And then in between those two you have glides, and glides are glassy, connecting habitats that are usually not as deep. We had a crew that were out on the river all through the summer, and they were measuring transects or cross sections in each of the habitat types to look at how habitats change as the flows trend down in the summer. 18 transects on the Koksilah, 12 transects on the Chemainus. We've never been able to collect this kind of information. And the objective of that study is to understand what fish need in the river and how those flows are or aren't supporting fish. In the Koksilah and in the Chemainus, we have a real problem. We don't have very many pools. So when we have these hot water events, so the pools are really, really important. The deep water is a lot colder at the bottom, and the fish can get away from those temperature conditions that can kill them.
The Twin Watershed Project has allowed us to begin to understand how the health of the forests is affecting the health of fish habitat. Our field crews measured trees, shrubs, and the small plants to determine if their roots were adequately holding the soil in place and keeping it out of the water, and enough vegetation along the river to keep the water temperatures cool for the developing fish. We also looked for food and medicine plants, wildlife use, and dead wood an important building block for healthy soils.
The riparian zone is a precious area, and this big trail that we're on right now could be all moss, could be all plants. And when it rains, there wouldn't be so much mud in the water.
Adam, one thing that I've really enjoyed hearing from you is how you will now look at a dead tree differently. Can you tell us about that?
Well, for us, it's standing dry for the longhouse. For the elders, I get firewood. So I would always joke around with Heather and be like, that's firewood. She's like, no, that's a bird's home. How she sees the bush and the trees and all of the forest is really sweet compared to, it's all medicines or firewood to me when I go up there. And it's just how I see the bush.
I'm used to the measuring and evaluating and quantifying, and you stretched my mind to see the medicines. So that was very rewarding. It's been very rewarding for me as well. Yeah.
So the relationship between the province and Cowichan Tribes has been rocky at times. However, you know, this is a new era, we hope, and there's these wonderful young, committed, energetic, thoughtful staff in both groups that are really want to make this work, and they want this to be a model. And so we've spent a lot of time thinking about that relationship and working on that relationship, and we think that's going to be the foundation of the project.
So one of the really important things that we've been able to do in this project is collect that traditional information and knowledge and use it to validate our models.
Everything is connected in how it works. Fauna, flora, sunlight, shade, large woody debris. The forest can't survive without one of those 5 things. The streams we're talking about for salmon, they can't live without those same 5 things.
Everything around us connects us to each of those resources, and we hope that everyone is able to, get a better understanding of who we are as Cowichan Watershed.
We're all salmon people, regardless of where we're at. It's our subsistence. It's been our subsistence forever, since we've been on this planet. So it's fed and clothed us, and it's, given us the nutrients we need for life, from human to plant to animals. So it's so important. That's all I can say, really.